home for politics. I'm once again very happy about the fact that we have a great Politics and Eggs, our great series with our incredible partner, the New England Council. A couple things. We're 25-year anniversary this year of the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. 3 days before September 11th, the ribbon was cut. We're particularly thankful for all of the supporters. Many of you are here today who support the New Hampshire Institute of Politics. Politics and Eggs, of course, is put on by our sponsors, many of whom are on every single table. They're listed right there. They're very important to what we do, and so we're very appreciative. Without further ado, I want to introduce Jim Brett, the President and CEO of the New England Council.
That's it?
Yeah.
Hey.
And Ambassador Rahm Emanuel. They're going to do a fireside chat type of event today, so they're welcome up, and
Come over here.
we'll go from there. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome to all of you. What a way to start the week, to be here at the Institute of Politics and our Politics and Eggs. And I want to thank all of my special friends that are here today. Fred Siegel, Jeff Robbins, good friends of the Ambassador. And it's already been mentioned, we're only successful in this series because of the help we get from all our sponsors. So thank you to all our sponsors. And if I could just put a quick commercial in the New England Council, our events. Today's event is the 15th in-person event of the first quarter of this year. And next week we'll be in Massachusetts for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Governor. Maura Healey will be speaking to the New England Council. We have Joe Courtney, the congressman from Connecticut, will be speaking to the New England Council next couple of weeks. Stephen Lynch will be my congressman, 8th Congressional District in Boston, will be speaking in Washington to the New England Council. And we have many others that will be announcing very shortly. And then finally, in May 13th and 14th, we have a Washington Leaders Conference where we bring together 250 New Englanders, Democrats, Republicans, red, blue, all come to Washington, D.C. for 2 days to hear from different perspectives from the Senate leaders, the House leaders, the administration people, just as well as some media personalities. But it's a great way of networking, making some friends, and also finding out what is going on in Washington. So we hope that many of you will come.
When you discover that, will you call us?
Moving right along, this is not going to be easy. He's already... I only met Rahm for like 5 minutes. I'm worn out. I'm worn out. His schedule, what he does.
I used to say I was ambassador to Japan for 3 years. For the Japanese, it felt like 30.
I could go through, Rahm's bio, but needless to say, his whole life is public service. I mean, he's got involved in many campaigns in his home state with Paul Simon and Mayor Daley, and then he got involved nationally in the presidential campaign, President Bill Clinton, and he served as a senior advisor to the president, and then he decided, you know what, I'd like to run for Congress. I believe he ran in the 5th Congressional District in Illinois for 3 terms. How am I doing?
4 terms.
4 terms? Okay. Just testing you.
I didn't serve the
3 was enough for you. Yeah. Okay. And then got involved in Barack Obama's campaign and ended up being the chief of staff there. Decided to leave there to run for mayor of the great city of Chicago. And then Joe Biden becomes president, appoints our good friend ambassador to Japan. What a career, to say the least. What a career of public service. And we're fortunate to have him here today. So that's his background. And I don't know how many people know
My mother would have said he could have been a doctor.
Could have been a doctor. Well,
so I told her I was a spin doctor. That's all you got to worry about, Mom.
I don't know how many people know what Rahm means in the Jewish faith, but Rahm means high or lofty. And you were, did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay, so
You're
now you want to
convinced.
do the, SAT test. Not that I want to share my SAT score.
You're a distinguished alum
No.
of Sarah Lara.
It comes from the back end of Abraham, and it's the only name that both Jews and Muslims share, Rahm and Raheem, because we come from Abraham. Now you all go, oh, wow. That's on the cheat sheet, okay?
He's also been recorded on many occasions to say, look, I'm just going to tell you how to get the job done. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, you can join my family and not like me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we like about Rahm, is that he tells it as it is. And we are very excited to start on a couple of topics that you probably are very familiar, and that's foreign affairs, the war in Iran. It seems to be getting more expansive, more troops are going to be sent to that area of the world. Your thoughts on how the whole war in Iran has worked out so far?
Not well. One is it's impossible to unring a bell, but the reason I say not well is one of the purposes defined by the president was to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb or the nuclear material for a bomb. And in the process of the war, they discovered they have a nuclear option, the Strait of Hormuz. And they never had it before. The biggest fear and the reason the Gulf countries, it was implied, but never exercised. Now it's exercised. And one of their 5 demands is you pay us a commission for every ship. Well, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, just to name Oman, they're like, wait a second, there's an international body of water. What are you kidding? And so Iran is now saying that it's theirs. So it has not turned well. That's on the short term. And the United States, just as I said last night in this room, in 1987, everybody's referring to it, when America secured the Strait of Hormuz, it took 14 months. We lost 37 American servicemen and women. So this is not like you just do it on Friday and you're done on Monday and you wash your hands. That means every ship and every capacity. We already have an aircraft carrier that's only permanently based in Asia, the only place in the world that's based in Okinawa. It's over in that region. How many resources are you going to draw away from either Europe or Asia for this endeavor? Second, I happen to think the repercussions of this, the kind of what I call the aftershocks, will be felt for years across Europe, across Asia, South Korea, Japan, just by reference. 90% of the oil comes from the Middle East. They're our anchor. Japan's your long pole. Your senator and her husband today are in Japan. It's the long pole of America in Asia. Whether you're doing the Korean relationship, the Philippine relationship, the Quad, the one constant in America's relations is Japan. Largest military presence in the United States anywhere in the world in a single country outside the United States, Japan. This is insane. So to me, the president, and it's very clear, the president's team had an offer from Iran far superior than the 2015 Obama offer. And they didn't know what they had. So this is a war of choice, and it was a bad choice. Now, I said here last night, and I think, now how do you undo this? And so there's a short term is the Strait of Hormuz. The other piece of this is we have the Abraham Accords. Right after they get signed, Israel becomes part of the CENTCOM intelligence sharing, where America's the hub, and all the intelligence from Saudi Arabia, everybody feeds into the central system. It worked unbelievable in June. My view is use the Abraham Accords, and I'm spitballing here, and I want to be honest about this, and we're going to do 3 things. If you're in the Abraham Accords, you get the lowest tariffs or no tariffs. So it's a reward to be part of peace to our allies, who are angry at us for not being listened and adhered to. Second, if you're in the Abraham Accords and you want to buy U.S. military equipment, you get front line, pre-TSA, which isn't working too well right now. Third, we're going to build a pipeline, and America's going to finance it through the Abraham Accords with our partners, out of the Strait of Hormuz into the Red Sea, so that we never ever again face an Iran that has sponsored state terrorism across all over, from Latin America to Europe, not just in the Middle East. They have tried to go for a breakout on the nuclear weapons, and you get out of their logjam now that they know they have a nuclear option. We're going to have to finance a pipeline, and Saudi Arabia just yesterday hit $7 million from their pipeline to the Red Sea. So for the Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, you have an alternative out of there. So to me, we have to start thinking long term for the interests in that area. And I think this was, you can't unring the bell. It was a war of choice, and it was a bad choice for the United States, short, medium, and long term.
Are you worried that
Yes, I'm very worried.
that the administration is slowly disassociating themselves from NATO? There's talk that they might be removing some of the troops from Europe. He's not happy with NATO, that they didn't come to the aid of the United States. So what's NATO going to be like?
Well, it's kind of, I'm sorry, for the president, you didn't talk to anybody beforehand. You spent a year and a half punching down, belittling people, and all of a sudden they're supposed to come to our defense when they told you not to do this. Had we listened to France and Germany in 2003, we never would have been in Iraq. So I think it's crazy. Now, again, NATO is defensive, not offensive. This is an offensive war. So by its nature, it was a defensive, which is the most successful alliance created in human history. Second, I do think we have to, post Russia's invasion of Ukraine, you have to think of modernizing. Now, the piece, and I don't want to quote myself, but since some of you will, I'll do it for myself, okay? Is one, and I say that I wrote this piece, there's no reset button. So if you get to into the Oval, you're not hitting reset, we're going to abide by the law. Nobody's going to believe us anymore. So we're going to have to earn back our trust, which is the most important currency. You all work in business, we work as a national security. There are three instruments in our national security: military power, economic statecraft, or rather four, political persuasion, and cultural attraction. And in every part of the world, you have to attract each of those and put them in a different order. In Europe, what we have done, I say call it for modernization and reform. Everything west of the Rhine River in Germany, if it's not nailed down, the United States and its NATO allies move it east to Poland, Romania, Czech Republic, etc., as an active deterrence to Russia against doing something post-Ukraine. Two, you modernize what are called gray zone attacks. As you probably have read across Europe, rail lines are busting. Cyber attacks on utilities. This is Russia just shy of kinetic, but disturbing our European allies. We should have very clear protocols. If you do X, it triggers Article 5 of NATO. And then third, have an economic agreement and statecraft on supply chain disruptions and new technologies around fusion, AI, life sciences. You go through the list, as well as quantum computing, and we come together as a consortium and have an economic statecraft. That, to me, would continue to not only have a defensive alliance, it would modernize it for the modern age and act as a very credible deterrence, like NATO did against Russia up until this point, and now it has to be modernized.
How much damage was done with our relationship with Europe when the president attempted to seize Greenland?
Look, you're not really serious about it. I mean, here's what I would say. If they ever run a sequel to the movie Dumb and Dumber, I have two people that I would recommend for the lead roles. And there's a lot of competition in the administration who gets to bleed. I mean this seriously. Why would you pay full price for something you can get for free? Denmark looks at us and says, what do you want? A new runway? We'll do it. You want the critical minerals long term? We'll do it. Why would you, as taxpayers, be asked to pay full price for something you can get for free? And the president answered this. This is not a pop quiz. It's not U.S. history for 200. He says, I need it, quote, I need it psychologically. Well, go see a therapist. No, really. You have a president of the United States, told the New York Times, it wasn't like very conservative to right-wing social media. He told the New York Times, formerly a credible news organization, that's a joke, I need it personally, psychologically. I mean it. Well, okay. Go see somebody. We're not going to pay $15 billion for what you need psychologically. And the other country, our ally, who lost more members per capita than any other ally in the mountains of Afghanistan standing by America. They're ready to do whatever you want to achieve your security interests, and you want it personally. This is a problem. You have a president of the United States who personalizes our national security. Ours. He likes Xi and Putin because he gets along with them. Well, that's not our national security. And he personalizes it, I need it psychologically. You have America's national security interest, not your personal likes and dislikes. And then he takes a bunch of NATO allies and spends a year belittling them, punching down, etc. And then says, when we need them, come to our aid, because we need them, because we started a war of choice. And I want you to understand this. As a father of 2 kids in the armed forces, there is a young couple now who doesn't have a father, who has 7-month-old twins, who will only have an American flag on that fireplace mantle, a picture, and for the rest of those 2 kids' lives will be stories. The young men and women, regardless of what you think of the Commander-in-Chief, are the best of the 1% of this country. It is not a... And I'm going to say this, very distinguished businessman. The 1% is not defined on how much you acquire. The 1% is defined by how much you have given selflessly. And whatever you think of this war, whatever you think of it, the 50,000 men and women that have been sent by the Commander-in-Chief, they have been selfless in their sacrifice, and they have served in the interests of America. They've given something. They deserve a Commander-in-Chief as serious about the responsibilities as they are about to execute. And you know it in the bones. That is not happening right now. And that is a dereliction of duty by the Commander-in-Chief.
You know, one of your many proposals, you talk about Universal National Service Program. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, well, let me give you a couple things about, yes, one is I'm for the last 6 months of high school, every child due in 6 months. Literacy, clean up a river. But I'm going to tell you a powerful story. I think it's powerful, hopefully, and I'm pretty jaundiced and cynical, so hopefully it attracts you. When I'm mayor, every month I would do a citizenship in the city council. Swear in new people that believed in the American dream, like my grandfather who came to this country from Eastern Europe in 1914. So the embassy says to me, we saw that in our research that this, they did op research on the new ambassador Wacko coming here. And they said, we saw you used to do these citizenships. Would you go to the aircraft carrier, the only one, and do a citizenship? And I said, sure. So we're on the aircraft carrier. We're on the 7th floor all the way to the bottom. And I say we, Amy and I. And if you serve in the American Armed Forces as a non-citizen, after accident you've done it with respect and you've got a good ranking and rating, you become a citizen. It's actually a policy started by George Bush, 43. So I'm standing there and I swear in 17 people from 3 different continents in 11 countries, serving America in Japan on an aircraft carrier, and they're not citizens. And I was like taken. And now go back to 2005. I've written it in my book. I'm for national service, etc. And why? Now, Democrats always run around and we say diversity is our greatest strength. Diversity, which is true. But the reason the diversity works, it's not a guarantee. Diversity can also become a liability when Russia, China use our differences against us. Tell Amy I'm busy. I'm answering a question. And I believe the reason it works on the Abraham Lincoln is that the foundation There's a singular purpose to the mission. So you have people from all over America, all ethnicities, sexual orientations, genders, different people, non-citizens, but they have a foundation. If we're honest with ourselves, all of us, our politics, our society have become a Hunger Games. The foundation of who we are and what we believe has been weakened. So I happen to think, for the next generation, let us build a single experience together across New Hampshire, in all your beautiful cities in all parts. Dedicate 6 months of your life to building this great country. I happen to think, as the son and the grandson of an immigrant, I won the lottery ticket of life. I'm an American. This is the greatest country in the world that's ever seen. But our foundation as Americans has been eroded and it has been chiseled at. So for the next generation, build that foundation that serves, etc., our interests. Kids from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different parts, finding a common experience together. And then this beautiful mosaic called America will have a foundation just like the kids on the Abraham Lincoln. A single foundation that actually allows that diversity to become a strength, not a liability. You know the joke, even paranoid people have enemies? Russia and China and Iran are trying to turn Americans against Americans. We see it all the time. We do a pretty good job doing it ourselves. So build something that lasts time. Now, my staff is about to kill me, but I don't, I'm up here, they can't kill me, so what the hell?
But they might miss and get me.
You know what's funny? I just checked. Your wife bought the umbrella policy, so she may be the one paying for it, Jim. So, but here's the thing. Let's say that's, I'm just saying this out loud. Let's say you do 6 months mandatory. But if you decide to go 2 years of national service to the country, we'll give you the down payment for your first home. That would be in the synagogue a prayer right there that I just heard. But think we could solve 2 problems. One, we find bonds that unite us across differences that aren't really differences. And then we help a young couple, which because the average price of a home here is $550,000. You have a younger population. Your challenge now is your economy, I know, has its challenges like the rest of the country, but young couples can't start their journey on the American dream. So if you serve 2 years, not 6 months. 6 months is required. 2 years is a choice. We'll give you the resources for a down payment on a home. And you, having done something for your country will return and help you start on the journey of the American dream. That, to me, would be kind of like the right type of responsibility joined by opportunity. Now, I need to go out the back door because my staff's going to kill me. Where's this idea come? But actually, I have somebody at Brookings working on this idea. Not that they give us credit, but I think so, at least.
I read recently that you had a visit to Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Correct.
And you visited Woodley School, I think. And
You either spend all your time on the internet or somebody's doing really good research
I
for you.
have no life. I have no life. I'm a C-SPAN junkie.
You want to hug it out?
No, it's okay. And you were so blown away and so impressed with the school.
Yeah.
And tell us more what you learned from that school.
One, scene setter. America is at a 30-year low on reading scores for our third graders. 50% of our kids cannot read at grade level. I know this doesn't come as a surprise. 4th grade is not easier if you can't read at 3rd grade level. In Washington, just shrugs. There's no emergency meeting like Ronald Reagan did on the nation at risk. There's nobody calling an emergency. What do? Now, every challenge America faces can be answered by what's working in America. So I went to Mississippi because it's known in education as the Mississippi Miracle. They went from 49th to 9th on reading. And trust me, having spent some time moving reading scores and math scores. You go from 49th to 9th. Either everybody else is really getting bad or you're making progress. Second, Louisiana, Alabama, and Tennessee replicate what's called the Mississippi Miracle on phonics, all seeing hockey stick improvements in reading scores. So this is not a trick. And I wanted to go to Mississippi to see firsthand, because I had a lot of people were debating this in quote unquote the journals. And I wanted to see firsthand what they were doing. And they call it, by the way, in Mississippi, not the Miracle, the Mississippi Marathon. It's been a 20-year project. You want quick results? Don't try to work on reading and math. You know this from your own kids? It's a constant work effort to get it. But they train teachers all on phonics, gave teachers a coach on phonics, start kids early on in their life, and the kids who need a little extra help get tutoring, etc. And if you don't get your third grade reading scores by your third test, you don't go to fourth grade. So it's a comprehensive system. And they have made, and the other states that replicate, impressive. So I want to see it. And I'll never forget this principal. There's 9 schools in Hattiesburg. Hers was the worst. She's the wife of the one of the pastors in Hattiesburg, biggest church. She has moved it to number 1. She has a 96% attendance rate. Very welcoming, but she says, I want tests, I want scores, I want to be measured, and I want to use those tests to measure progress. She's not scared of accountability. And it's a welcoming environment. And and again, I want to repeat to you, there is no problem we face that we cannot find the solution right here at home. I happen to think that one of the through lines to the American dream, if you look at American history, land-grant colleges, universal high school education, the GI Bill, and the Sputnik Challenge, the one constant of America's greatness is education. Do you think China has 50% of their kids not reading at third grade level? We're going to face a country 3 times our size. We're not going to do it with one hand tied behind our back. Invest in America, invest in Americans, and we'll win. You don't? We won't. This is not hard. And I think that what I saw in Mississippi gave me encouragement, phonics, but I did some other research. Who do you think has the best public education system in the country? Beating all 50 states. The U.S. Armed Services. The public schools on our bases across the country, single bet. They haven't done it with a voucher. They haven't. Single best public school system. You look at every demographics on reading and math scores. On everything, graduation rates. There's a lot of issues that go into this, and I could spend hours just on this topic. One of the things, elementary school, you didn't ask me, so I'm going to go into this until you say I have another question. Elementary schools return to the fundamentals on reading and math. High school fundamentally reform them. Turn them from diplomas into college career. We did 3 things in Chicago that I think, when I look back, were the right. 1, you get a B average in high school. We're the first city to make community college free. Earn it. Was that the silent clap? Okay, gotcha. 2, through dual credit and dual enrollment in our community colleges, 50% of our kids graduated with college credit. Make that a mandate nationally. 3, learn, plan, succeed. In Chicago, you could not get your high school diploma without a letter of acceptance from a college, community college, branch of the armed forces, or a vocational school. And we had 98% compliance. Every child, not just yours, not just mine, not just the people in this room, every child deserves to have a plan post-high school. Don't throw the towel in on them. You know it and I know it. That diploma doesn't carry what it used to carry. Update our education system to meet the economic challenges of tomorrow. You want to be an electrician? Great. Here's the math and science you got to do. You want to go to the Air Force? Fabulous. Here's what you have to do. You want to become a nurse? You want to become, a legal paralegal? Great. You want to be a chemical engineer? Fabulous. But you're not walking across this platform graduation day without telling us where you're walking to. Now in Chicago, 83% of our kids are from poverty or below. 98% met that requirement. You got to give it a lot of support. You just can't throw it at a kid. But they get the same support that my child gets, or all three of them, at our home. And we did that. And so to me, that better prepares every American for tomorrow. That's how we win this century.
Another one of your proposals is you'd be willing to give $10,000 in assistance to, any military service member to transition to skilled trade schools. And talk about that, why you think that's important.
Well, you will know this here in New Hampshire. You're about to have Joe Courtney. They build the submarine in Joe's district in Connecticut. Tell Joe I know that. Every year as taxpayers, you pay for 2 nuclear subs to be built every year. For the last decade, we've built 1.2. Do not get on the 0.2. It's not going to do well. We've never been able, on budget or on time, to produce 2. Why? No pipe fitters, no electricians.
Yeah.
Every year, they come back, ask for more money. So, my view is 200,000 men and women come out of the armed service every year. $10,000 signing bonus, you become a carpenter, electrician, a plumber, a pipe fitter, etc. Now, no disrespect to the lawyers here. You want a lawyer, you can get $1,000. You want a plumber, you got to wait 4 weeks. And personally, I think a plumber's a lot more important than a lawyer. So, to me, now the other piece of this, I'd make it $50,000. You're paying $50,000. You're paying $50,000 for somebody to become an ICE agent who's terrorizing Americans. So to me, I wouldn't pay that lawless organization anything for a signing bonus. But I proposed what I could afford, $10,000 on a budget thing, $10,000. You leave the Army, you leave the Air Force, you want to be a carpenter or electrician. Now let me tell you one thing. Today, we are 500,000 electricians short just to build our data centers, regardless of what you think about a data center. You're 150,000 electricians short to build out our broadband. AI will not take that job. Now, I went and I made this proposal in Grand Rapids. Met a young woman at the Carpenter's Hall. She was a florist. She's a full carpenter, foreman, retrofitting the closed nuclear plant. She's making $50 an hour, not counting health care and pension, not 401k, pension, and she has guaranteed work as a foreman for the next 7 years. I met a young man at the Operating Engineers Training Center. Used to be working in a warehouse, making $150 more than minimum. Rented, and could afford to move to his parents. Today, he's making after a year, making $36 an hour, plus health care and pension. Got married. That's going to cost them. And got a down payment. I'm going to hear from that from my wife in a second. I got a down payment on a home. We're short electricians. We're short carpenters. So my view is, you serve the country, we're going to give you a down payment on the next chapter of your life and help you. And there's a great program, called, we did this in Chicago, worked with them on carpenters, called Helmets to Hard Hats. It's a non-for-profit. But I want to take that concept, $20,000 a year for the next 5 years, add 100,000 more tradesmen. I'd do more, but that's what I'm talking from budgetary. But we can't forget broadband and data centers. The lack of carpenters, the lack of electricians, and the lack of plumbers and pipe fitters is a national security challenge. Now, what do you hear from Washington? Silence. Ready? There are 43 job training programs on the books across 9 separate departments and agencies. And we're short carpenters and electricians and all types of other trades. The CEO of Ford just announced 3 months ago, I got 5,000 jobs paying 6 figures plus benefits and I can't find anybody. This is what we call in Chicago an uptown problem. People can't afford to get a home and a down payment and want the part of the American dream. CEOs looking for people. We're short thousands upon thousands of them. In Washington, and I'm just it's like reading. I mean this. I learned so much being in Japan about America, watching it from a distance. The American people haven't, but our government has lost its nerve. We take these problems, and we're so used to Washington failing, we just kind of, 50-year low on reading. Let me talk to you about why I'm against windmills. We're short the CEO of a major automotive company in America. I can't find anybody for these great jobs. Silence. We've accepted, this is a country built on the ethos, failure is not an option. And in Washington, it's become the first choice. American people haven't given up on America. Our nation's capital, which I refer to as Disneyland on the Potomac, has. And we have to literally shake it up and focus it, tackle these problems, and the one thing you can never underestimate is the spirit of the American people. But we went from an ethos, think about it, we went from an ethos, failure is not an option, third graders can't read, we don't have electricians, and everybody stares at their shoes. So they need a good 2x4 upside their head.
I think you quoted as saying that we get so hung up on whether we should put the name of Abraham Lincoln on the wall of a school rather than talking about how significant he was as a person.
Well, my kids would tell me, they said, but we lost the plot. He had a school in San Francisco that wanted to take Abraham Lincoln's name off the school. They never asked whether the kids knew why Abraham Lincoln was an icon. And I happen to be reading a book right now called Boss Lincoln. It's about him as a political player, etc. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You got kids, and I'm sensitive to this, trying to figure out their pronoun. But you got 30 other kids in the class that don't know what a pronoun is. And we're worried about a pronoun, and we got 30 kids can't tell you what a pronoun is. Think about this. We argued for years after COVID who gets access to a bathroom or a locker room. We never realized maybe it's about classroom excellence, not about access to a bathroom. But we got wrapped around an axle. Focus on the problems of what is going to help that student, this country, become great. And you'd be amazed what we can do. But we've lost the plot.
The administration may send a $200 billion appropriation to Congress in the next couple of weeks.
I love the way you say that. It's like an editorial. Do that again.
Yeah. Maybe I should be sitting over. You have an interesting perspective on the $200 billion. That we ought to put maybe an amendment in that $200 billion appropriation for Department of War, some assistance for the ACA now that it expired in December. Talk about that.
It's look. First of all, again, I want to go back. It's a war of choice, and it was a bad choice. He's asking for $200 billion for a decision he didn't have to make. He could have got everything without this war. So my view is you cut not only $24 billion from healthcare, but you cut millions of families right here in New Hampshire, who had pre-existing conditions that can't get health care otherwise. We're supposed to pay for your mistake, and your idea is to cut people's health care? Well, no way. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you think you are, but that ain't going. And I would, and I'm not saying it just out of politics, which I am saying it out of politics. So let's be clear. No, there's a price for this mistake, and it's more than just the $200 billion. It's more than just America's reputation around the world. You get the American people health care. You get them what they were relying on, and you know this, the ACA. These are small business owners. These are self-employed people. They can't get health care anywhere else. And you cut it. So if we're going to deal with this mistake you made, You're going to get right with the American people, and that's your best way we're going to help you, Mr. President, because you're going to get right with what you did in this Republican Congress. And otherwise, you're going to have to figure this out on your own. There's a price to be paid for this mistake, and the American people deserve their health care. And I'm saying this as somebody that used to go on rounds with my dad as a pediatrician. My dad had a policy, nobody gets turned away because they don't know how they're going to pay. The idea that I joke. I helped President Obama pass the ACA. I helped President Clinton pass the children's health insurance policy, whose children, the parents worked full-time but had no health care. I really don't want to do health care again. If it gets PTSD, I get stares at. But this is insane what they did. You have rural hospitals like closing. No Medicaid. You, here in New Hampshire, had not that you're out of it yet, but you had 3, 4, 5 years ago, severe opiate epidemic. Best treatment dollars, Medicaid. They cut it. And we're making finally, after the scourge of this, and there was a young man in this room the other day who talked about losing his sister. There's nothing worse in the emptiness in a parent's eye than the loss of a child to something that basically took over their lives. And the President of the United States and the Congress cut not only people's health care, but the lifeline to get out of this addiction. And these rural hospitals that are the lifeline of that community, not just economically, the peace of mind that comes that you don't have to think about this. So, you want $200 billion for a mistaken and misgotten war? I want the American people to be right by health care.
I think it was 16 years ago last week, the ACA was signed into law.
Yeah. Okay, I knew that. I'm getting scared, Jim, about you right now. I'm going to actually start looking at your internet bill, okay? You look like you're on the super program.
Last week you proposed a far-reaching ban on betting in prediction markets by federal employees and their families.
All of them.
All of them. Talk a little bit more why you think this is necessary.
Well, I'll do it again. You have young men and women from Portsmouth serving in the armed forces, putting their lives on the line. And you have some Nepo baby in Palm Beach betting daddy's inheritance on inside information.
I know.
You have a young man or woman from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, overseas right now, risking it all at the direction of the Commander-in-Chief, who I know studied this issue really hard and looked at it from all the angles in the Situation Room. Now, you don't have to be as cynical as I am to know somebody took information like they did in Venezuela 1 minute beforehand and made a bet. In my view, every member of Congress and their family, every member of their staff, every cabinet member, every member of their family, every person in the federal government from the president on down, to land management on the tippy corner all the way up in Maine. You're in the federal government, you cannot participate in these quote-unquote predictive markets. You're not betting against America while Americans are on and putting their life on the line. And it's out of control. And it's not just the predictive markets. Right before the war, somebody took a S&P, bet short, somebody took oil, bet long. A good guess, the largest bet decision made by a multiple of 6. That is breaking the law. Now, I don't hold your breath that there's a police officer at SEC or the CFTC enforcing this. We have crony capitalism, and we have normalized in this country corruption as a norm. Now, I'm serious about this. Bill Clinton, there was full investigations over access to the Lincoln bedroom. You have people placing bets in the markets with inside information. You don't have to be gone to Harvard IOP to know this. And we all, as again, just shrug our shoulders at corruption in broad daylight. Ban it. hire more police officers at Securities and Exchange Commission, hire more at CFTC, and shut down the Insider Tradings. And this is what surprised me at corporate America. This country is built on the rule of law. It was not built on the rule of one. If you normalize this, then everything about the free market, that is a great economic system with a lot of challenges, will fall apart. And these bunch of corporate leaders, to quote Teddy Roosevelt, timid souls. I think this is, I mean, I can go, this is like insane to me. So from the predictive markets to enforcement of our laws, no insider trading. And it's happening in broad daylight. And again, I mean this. We have normalized corruption, that it's accepted. It's happening. It's not like you have to investigate it. People are making bets on inside information, and it's out in the public domain, and a show of hands. How many people think that this will be held accountable and somebody will actually serve? End the case.
What about inside stock trading? Why aren't the Democrats using that as an issue? I mean, people are upset to hear about members who go to Congress, they make $174,000 a year, and all of a sudden, 3 years later, they're $5 million, $8 million.
How about this?
Why not just...
How about this? The President of the United States made $1.6 billion last year. Investor Day for his companies inside the Oval Office. I think all of Washington needs a good power washing. You know how every spring you come out and you power wash your deck? That's what Washington needs. And on top of it, in that, no trading by members of Congress or family members or staff, no investor days by the President's cabinet or any dealings by any member of the cabinet. The judiciary, not just Supreme Court, but the whole judiciary, you cannot take a trip or a gift from anybody with an interest in front of your system. And on top of it, when you're 75, get out. Mandatory retirement across the board. We look like a cheap Politburo, the United States. You're not hitting your peak at 78. Okay, at 75, you're done. Go teach. Come here. Give the next generation something to learn. That's another way to public service. But I mean this, and I said it last night, and I've said it before. I was the principal and point person for President Clinton of passing the assault weapon ban. I worked with Senator Feinstein, a great senator. Let's be honest. The last term, she didn't even know she was in the Senate. This is ridiculous. You have Senator McConnell, who I battled against. He spends more time in the hospital than he does on the Senate floor. 75, you're done. And if not, I'm going to go into battery projects for hearing aids because I'm going to become a millionaire selling it to the United States Senate. It's crazy, folks. And again, we've normalized a geriatric system. You remember, the United States Senate was where you used to aspire to. Today it's where you go to retire. You laugh. You laugh because it touches a nerve. So 75, part of the ethics package, basta, pre-TSA.
But you also include federal judges.
100%. What's wrong with that?
No, I was just curious. Why did you
Why do you have a problem with that,
Jim? I don't.
Jim, why don't you explain yourself?
Well, we do. Well,
let me ask you a question. What part of the Supreme Court?
Answer your question.
Let me ask you a question. What part of the Supreme Court taking gifts, trips, or the big Winnebago did you think was okay?
I didn't think it was okay, but
Okay,
it's the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rules on their own existing rules.
That's why you should pass a congressional.
Well, yeah, but Madison and Jefferson, they believed in separation, executive, legislative branches. So I don't know, getting involved in the judicial as a member of Congress or administration.
Here's my view. All three branches of government need a power washing. They do.
Yeah.
And what happened, and the Supreme Court should be part of that cleanup. Since they're not going to enforce it, we gave you a chance. It's not like you haven't had the last 6 years to do it. You won't do it. Roberts won't do it. Now, I want to say one thing. I'm for the whole branch, but I want to give a shout out to these lower court judges. They have done a respectful and incredible job but they've been abandoned by the Roberts courts on their own on these things called shadow dockets. And these judges, at great extent, have held up the rule of law while they've been basically on the front lines and abandoned by the Supreme Court and the Justice Department. And I respect everything they have done. And you have a number of them here in the New England area, specifically in the Boston court, that deserve our thanks for remembering that the rule of law is something worth defending here in America.
We have a couple of minutes left for the...
From my childhood? Am I getting
No.
started here?
We're just going to talk about politics, and we're 7 months away from the election in Congress, and you played a major role in 2006, being the chair of, the Congressional Campaign Committee, and you were able to flip the House from Republican to Democrat in that year, 2006, and people give you so much credit for that. Are there any lessons taken from there that you can apply to 26?
Yes, but you have to pay for that lesson. No. So, here's what I think is really important to remember. When one party controls both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, there's a law of physics kicks in. 1994, 2006, 2010, 2018. That law of physics has played out in the last year. Right now, Democrats have gone 13 for 13 in statewide elections across the country. Never lost one. 2 in Pennsylvania, 2 in Georgia. You're about to have one April 7th in Wisconsin. 2, they have flipped over 24 state legislative seats, and the Republicans have not flipped one. What are the law of physics? The party out of power voters, massive energy and turnout. Independent voters break 2-1 for the party out of power, and the incumbent party have a depressed party in power has a depressed turnout. In every election since November 2024, across this country in 2025 and part of 2026, that fact has played out. And you're going to see it. By June, the thematic structure of this election is set. It's a referendum on the president, and they do nothing, rubber stamp Republican Congress. There is. And in my view, the president knows that he's going to get a comeuppance like he's never seen, and this is building like a head of steam. The second thing, that I find fascinating, wasn't the elections the other day in Florida, where we flipped Tuesday. Look, I get the politics of Mar-a-Lago, the president's home. I get that. It's just it's like a towel snap in the locker room. But the most important election last week, Jim, did you Google it?
Not yet.
Okay. You're going to hear it from Dr. Google here. The most important election was the President of the United States lost the Republican primary in North Carolina. He endorsed the Senate Majority Leader, most powerful Republican in North Carolina, and he went down. The reason I say that's important is you got a bunch of Republican members of Congress and Senate who put their manhood in a lockbox to this president. They're scared of their own shadow. And you just discovered the president doesn't have any SWAT in the Republican primary. Now, they're going to get a comeuppance this November. But that election told you the bell just rung on his presidency.
You think both
Do you think
houses...
you can get that from Google?
I'm sure I can. I would have had it earlier. What about the...
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay.
Are you worried at all
Yes,
about the
that's the
Democratic
second.
message? Because there are some people, the far left, I believe the candidate that won the Democratic nominee for the Senate in Illinois said, defund ICE. I would think that the Demis would be the Demis.
Oh, it's a
I'm trying to
Broadway show coming to a theater near
the
you.
The Demis would say, hey, wait a minute, we went through this before.
Yeah.
Defund the police.
Yeah.
And we got to be careful. We got to get back to your thoughts on the message, because there was don't want to cite a poll, but there was a poll that said 65% of the people do not favor the Democrats. They do not favor the Democrats because they have said, we do not like what the president is doing. Doesn't mean we're going to vote Democrat. No. We may not vote at all.
No.
So my question is, what are the Democratic messages other than we're not him?
You know, Henry Kissinger once said, "Do you have any questions for my answers?"
Yeah.
Okay, so so look, this is a referendum election. The reason you were asking me earlier about ideas about national service and about 2028 is a choice election. If you want the American people to have confidence to support you, you have to tell them that we can fight for America as much as we can fight Trump. Trump is too much in our head. And we've lost and blurred out America. The young man and woman who from Portsmouth are serving overseas. What are we going to do when they come back? The small business owner in Manchester or Concord that now no longer has health care. So I'm for resisting Donald Trump, but I am for America's renewal. And the reason from education to owning a home to solving immigration or energy, investing in our energy systems, because we have to fight for America. Don't accept this notion. We're going to fail. Who does that? This country's worth fighting for, and your neighbor is worth fighting for. Your family's worth fighting for. And we've never lost by investing in America or Americans. Never, ever. And so, to me, while 80 to 90% of this election is a referendum on Trump and the rubber stamp Republicans, by 2028 or by November 7th at midnight, it is about a choice. And I have not to toot my own horn, but since you asked, I have a piece that will be coming out in the Wall Street Journal, my column, about how what we do in 2027 will set up 2028. In 2007, we win the House in 06. We did the children's health insurance bill. President Bush vetoed it twice. It set up the distinction between the parties. It was the second bill, the first Friday of President Obama's term that he signed it into law. In 1990, George Mitchell forces President Bush to break read my lips, no new taxes. That created division. Pat Buchanan challenges Bush. 1992, Bill Clinton becomes president of the United States. What the Democrats do in 2027 will determine 2028. We have a challenge, which you cited in that poll. The American people, when their backs are against the wall, believe Democrats are there to help them. We got into whether a school can be named after Abraham Lincoln, who has access to a locker room, defunding the police. Nothing that dealt with the American people's core interests. And when they need us, we didn't show. Now, the other thing I would say to you, which is a telling sign to other Democrats, Mayor Mandani did not run on Senator Mandani's record. He reappointed a very good police chief. When he was a senator, he said the police department of New York was racist and defunded. When he ran for mayor, I'd like to reappoint him. If you can't run on those cultural issues in New York City, that should be a lesson how to centralize and ground ourselves in middle-class values, tough enforcement at the border, put more police on the beat, and get kids, guns, and gangs off the street, and invest in the education opportunities of Americans. Get to the core of what they expect from us, and don't get caught up in some cultural cul-de-sac that leads nowhere except for running around in a circle like you're in a cartoon.
We have about 2 minutes left. I'm just going to ask you a question that...
Well, don't take all 2 minutes with the question.
No, I'm just going to ask you about the elephant in the room. And
what's that? There's like 7 of them.
And I'm just, I mean, you're here in New Hampshire. You're here at Politics and Eggs, big time, big time.
Your gift to observe the obvious?
Yeah. No,
I was a gift. I'm here in New Hampshire.
Why are we here?
Your neighbors. Why? They didn't know.
Is this something, I mean, you say you're in training. Are you in training to be a candidate?
Yeah, I mean, that's not a...
Okay, well, we ought to make some news here.
Well, I haven't had breakfast, so, look, I'm thinking, I've been in Iowa, Mississippi, Michigan, Wisconsin, yes, here in New Hampshire, I've been in Nevada.
Going to South Carolina?
Yeah, but the question is not only, I'm also getting smarter, which the young woman who was a florist who's a carpenter, the young man that worked in a warehouse, the principal in Hattiesburg. the young mother in Iowa who can't afford her health care and is thinking of moving out of the country. The nurse who spends 50% of her time talking to insurance companies, not to patients. So I think I have answers, but all along the process, I want to hear from the people, and I want to know what's on their mind, what aches them. There's two things in life. I say this as a father of 3 children. What gets you up at night that can't let you sleep, or keeps you up at night? What is worrying you? And we have to address that. The other thing is, as a country, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes you go? And we got to invest in that too. We've lost that desire. I haven't. I'm going to tell you the story, and I'll just... In my family's home, my parents put on the family wall the purse that held my grandmother's passport and my 2 great aunts' passports that brought them to this country. On either side of that purse are the black and white photos of my mom and dad's family that never made it to America. There's nothing subtle in our home. And those 28 eyeballs looked at us, all 3 brothers. You are not to waste this opportunity. It's the greatest country with the greatest heart. It's made its mistakes, but this is a place that you do not waste the opportunity. Public service, as John Kennedy said, is a noble pursuit. So, if I think I have what it takes to answer what I think is ailing the greatest country, then I'll jump into the deep end without my water wings. If I don't, I will fight for whoever our party nominates to make sure they make it to turn this country around and get it pointed in the right direction. I'm tired of watching us tear at each other. I don't like the mayhem at the border, and I don't like the mayhem at Minneapolis. Let's solve this problem, like the Dignity Act, and move on. Let's go to Mississippi and say, what did you do, and scale it. Let's go to the people that served our country and give them a start on a new career, a new path that's a ticket to the American dream. You take 2 years and you do something for America, we're going to give you a down payment on the American dream, and go get it. Go help America. This country is a gift, and it's time we give back that gift with our savings, our life. And we cannot, and I say this because you know this, I'm reading this book on Lincoln. He gives this great speech, not a senator, called The House Divided. It's about slavery, that it won't stand. We're at a time today